The floor is ice cold beneath her hands and knees. She can no longer stand. Her legs refuse to hold her weight. Her arms are swollen to twice their size, mottled red from wrist to shoulder. A fever burns through her small body that the camp doctors record as potentially fatal. She is 10 years old. She is inside the hospital barracks of Auschwitz-Birkenau, and Dr. Josef Mengele has just looked at her fever chart, shrugged, and declared she has 2 weeks to live. She does not weep. She does not beg. She crawls across the dirty floor toward a dripping faucet. She fades in and out of consciousness as she moves, and through cracked lips, she repeats the same words over and over. I must survive. I must survive. She is not just fighting for herself. Her twin sister Miriam is still in the barracks across the camp, and Eva Mozes knows the rule. If she dies, they will kill Miriam too. Eva Mozes was born on January 31, 1934, in a small village called Ports in Romania. Her family was simple, rooted, and deeply Jewish. Her father Alexander farmed the land they owned. Her mother Jaffa raised 4 daughters in a household of warmth and routine. The 2 oldest, Edith and Alice, helped their mother around the house. The 2 youngest were twins, Eva and Miriam, inseparable from the first day of their lives. Ports was a quiet place. The family was the only Jewish household in the area. Neighbors knew them. Children played together across the fields. Eva and Miriam grew up wearing matching clothes, finishing each other's sentences, sharing a single bed in winter for warmth. It was the kind of childhood built on small joys, the smell of bread from the kitchen, the sound of their father coming home at dusk. They had no reason to expect anything would ever change. Then the world fractured around them. In 1940, the Second Vienna Award handed northern Transylvania, including Ports, back to Hungary. Overnight, the village belonged to a different country. The laws changed. The atmosphere changed. A Hungarian Nazi armed guard moved in. The Mozes family began living in quiet fear. Every new policy, every new restriction tightened the walls around them. Years passed in mounting dread. In the spring of 1944, Germany occupied Hungary. The SS moved with brutal efficiency. Within weeks, the Mozes family was transporting to the ghetto at Sehe, near the town of Shimlu-Silvania. They had no housing. They slept under sheets strung between poles like tents. The ghetto was temporary, chaotic, stripped of dignity. Within weeks, they were loaded onto a cattle car. The journey to Auschwitz took 4 days. No food, no water. Dozens of people locked in a wooden box in the dark. Eva and Miriam held each other. Their mother Jaffa held all 4 daughters as tightly as she could. When the doors finally opened, the light was blinding. The platform was loud with barking dogs and shouted orders. The family tried to stay together. They were not allowed to. An SS officer on the ramp at Auschwitz-Birkenau tricked Jaffa into revealing that Eva and Miriam were twins. The twins were immediately seized and pulled away from their mother. Jaffa stretched her arms out in despair as they were separated. Eva watched her mother's face disappear into the crowd. She never saw her again. Alexander, Jaffa, Edith, and Alice were dead within hours, killed in the gas chambers at Birkenau. Eva and Miriam were alone. They were 10 years old. They were taken to Block 10, the twin experiment section controlled by SS Dr. Josef Mengele. Approximately 3,000 twin children had been brought to this place. Most would not survive. Mengele called himself a scientist. The truth was something darker. 3 days each week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Eva and Miriam were stripped and placed in a bare room for 6 to 8 hours. Nazi doctors measured every centimeter of their bodies, every measurement compared against the other twin, against previous measurements, against data from dead twins in the files. The other 3 days were worse. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, they were taken to the blood laboratory. Both girls sat side by side on hard chairs. Both arms were tied off to restrict circulation. From the left arm, a large amount of blood was drawn. Into the right arm, a minimum of 5 injections were administered, unknown substances, unlabeled vials. Eva could see the needle going into Miriam's arm. Miriam could see the needle going into Eva's. Neither girl cried out. There was no point. There was no one listening who cared. The injections made them sick, waves of nausea, dizziness that came in pulses. Miriam would later describe the way her body felt foreign to her afterward, not entirely her own. Eva watched her sister suffer and said nothing because there was nothing to say. They endured it together, sitting side by side, watching each other pay a price they never agreed to pay. It was systematic, precise, inhuman. Then came the injection that nearly killed Eva. She does not know exactly what was in the vial. Nobody told the children. After one session in the blood laboratory, Eva's body shut down. The fever arrived within hours, spiking, burning, turning her vision into hot white noise. Her legs and arms swelled grotesquely. Huge red blotches spread across her skin. She trembled uncontrollably. She could no longer stand. She was moved to the hospital barracks. Dr. Mengele came to check on her. He reviewed her fever chart. He said plainly that she had 2 weeks to live. His voice carried no concern. She was a data point. If she died, both twins would be killed so he could perform comparative autopsies. That was the protocol. Death was not a tragedy in this place. It was a procedure. But Eva heard something in that verdict that Mengele did not intend. She heard Miriam's name in it. She understood exactly what her death would mean. She was alone in the barracks for 2 weeks. She faded in and out of consciousness. She lost track of time, of days, of whether it was morning or night. But she did not stop fighting. She crawled across the floor to reach water when she was too weak to walk. She told herself the only thing she could say, I must survive, not as a prayer, as a command. She said it over and over until her own voice was the only thing left in the darkness. No adult helped her. No doctor came with kindness. No nurse held her hand. She was 10 years old, and she kept herself alive through sheer, ferocious refusal to die. She understood what was at stake. She did not need to be told. In Mengele's program, the survival of each twin was contingent on the other. If Eva died in that hospital barracks, Mengele's protocol required that Miriam receive a lethal injection immediately. A comparative autopsy demanded matched timing. Eva's heartbeat and Miriam's heartbeat were linked by a rule she had no power to change, except one way. She could refuse to die. That refusal was her only weapon. She could not fight with her hands. She could not escape. She could not call for help. But she could stay alive. And as long as she stayed alive, Miriam stayed alive. The experiments had destroyed Miriam in ways that would only become clear years later. Mengele's injections stopped Miriam's kidneys from developing normally. They remained the size of a 10-year-old child's kidneys for the rest of her life. The damage was invisible at Auschwitz. It would not announce itself for decades, but it was already done. Eva did not know this yet. She only knew she had to survive, so she did. 2 weeks after Mengele's verdict, Eva's fever broke. She was reunited with Miriam 3 weeks later. They held each other in the barracks. Neither spoke for a long time. There were no words adequate to what they had both passed through. They were still alive, which was a miracle they had each earned separately and together. The experiments continued. There were more Tuesdays, more Thursdays, more Saturdays, more needles, more unknown vials, more hours stripped and measured under cold eyes. They endured it. Then, on January 27, 1945, the Soviet army reached Auschwitz. The guards fled. The gates opened. Soldiers in grey coats moved through the camp with expressions Eva had not seen in 9 months, expressions of human horror at what they were witnessing. Eva and Miriam walked out of the barracks together. It was 4 days before Eva's 11th birthday. They were among approximately 180 children, most of them twins, who had survived the camp. Their parents were dead. Their sisters Edith and Alice were dead. Every member of their family who had arrived on that platform in May 1944 was gone, except them. They were the only ones left, and they were walking out together. They were brought first to a convent in Katowice that had been converted into an orphanage. From there, with the help of a family friend named Rosalita Senjuri, they made their way back to Romania. They found their Aunt Irina in Cluj. They lived with her and went to school. They were free, but freedom felt strange and incomplete under communist rule. In 1950, both Eva and Miriam received permission to emigrate to Israel. They arrived in the port city of Haifa and felt, for the first time in a decade, that they were not in danger of being persecuted for who they were. Both girls served in the Israeli army. Eva rose to the rank of sergeant major in the engineering corps. In 1960, she married Michael Kor, a fellow Holocaust survivor, in Tel Aviv. She moved to Indiana in the United States, where she raised 2 children. But the experiments did not stay in the past. Miriam's kidneys, damaged by Mengele's injections all those years before, never functioned normally. She suffered increasingly serious complications. Eva donated one of her own kidneys to Miriam. She said the decision was simple. She had 1 sister and 2 kidneys. Miriam died in 1993 of kidney cancer, the delayed consequence of what was done to her in the Auschwitz laboratory as a 10-year-old child. Eva did not let that become the final word. In 1984, she founded an organization called Candles, Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Lab Experiment Survivors. The name was deliberate. She wanted to shed light on a chapter of the Holocaust that had been largely buried. Candles located 122 other survivors of Mengele's experiments. Eva spent the rest of her life traveling, speaking, and returning to Auschwitz each year to walk the ground where she had once crawled across a filthy floor, telling herself she must survive. She forgave Josef Mengele publicly and explicitly, clarifying it was an act of self-liberation rather than absolution. She did not speak for other survivors. She spoke for herself. She said that as long as she held on to the hate, she was still a victim. When she let it go, she was finally free. Eva Mozes Kor died on July 4, 2019 in Krakow, Poland, while leading a group on an educational visit to Auschwitz. She was 85 years old. She died in the country where, as a 10-year-old, she had crawled across a floor and refused to let her sister be killed. She had been fighting for Miriam since the moment they were separated from their mother on that platform. She fought with the only thing she had, her will to survive, and it was enough.